My husband overheard me having an affair and found out that I was pregnant. I told him the baby was his, but it wasn't true. I got pregnant by another man and then told my husband that I was pregnant with his child. I managed to hide the truth for almost 4 years, but then he found out. All my efforts were in vain. I tried to keep it a secret, but it didn't work. Should I start by saying I did something wrong, or should I just act like it's not my fault? I'm married, and I had a child with someone else without my husband knowing. I didn't have a child before we got married. I had a child. I got pregnant a few weeks before our wedding. I was really scared and I just couldn't tell him that the child wasn't his. I knew there was no way I could survive the embarrassment of getting our wedding cancelled, so I had no choice. It's a really long story, but this long story has gotten pretty complicated because the real father of the child has unknowingly exposed the truth to my husband over a phone call. It's pretty weird, right? Well, everything about my personal life and marriage has been extremely complicated and weird. Some of it is my fault, and some I don't even know who to blame. My name is Christ, and I'm a 27-year-old. I've been in this role for about a year. I've been a receptionist for almost 5 years, but I recently had to quit my job after giving birth to my daughter. My husband's name is Jerry, and he's 30 years old. He's an accountant and also a businessman. My son's name is Cole, and he just turned 3. I know some of you might think I married a rich man just because he's an accountant and also a businessman, but I can assure you that's not the case. My husband is not rich or wealthy, he's actually quite broke. I've been saying for the past 4 years that the story is complicated. I'm sure you all think I'm serious now. My life and the mistakes I've made don't even deserve an Oscar. I know I'm a bad person who has done some terrible things, but please cut me some slack. I'm just trying to live a comfortable and happy life. I always look out for myself. The thing is, Jerry is not just broke, he has gone bankrupt. It's been 4 years since this started. I'm not gold digger, but I definitely cannot deny the fact that I like gold. I have to admit that I like gold a lot, so I'd be lying if I said that his bankruptcy doesn't bother me at all. I didn't sign up to get married into debt and empty promises. In fact, Jerry wasn't like this when we started dating, and then something happened that led to that. I ended up cheating, and then we had a baby. I had to get married to the bankrupt one. I know it's confusing, but I'm happy to explain. I don't want you to see me as just a gold digger. I was just looking for an opportunity to dig gold, but I'm definitely more than that. So I'm not afraid to prove that. Jerry and I met at one of the hotels I used to work at before he was there on a business trip. We flirted at the counter. I got attracted to him because of his confidence and attractiveness. I also liked the way he was dressed smartly with the rest of his colleagues. He brought his girlfriend along with him back then, so you wouldn't naturally expect anything to happen between us. Well, the truth is, his girlfriend also worked at the same hotel. She's an accountant too, so they came on the business trip together. I just wanted to clarify that, since you guys might ask why he brought his girlfriend to the business trip so soon. Fast forward to when the drama and gold digging actually started. Lel. I liked Jerry immediately. I saw him as a struggling receptionist back then who just needed a way to earn something substantial. Having a rich boyfriend didn't sound like a bad idea at all, so I went along with it and decided to shoot my shot. I started off with casual flirting. But none of it really made the kind of impression I was looking for. He would flirt back once in a while, but it never got serious. Plus, his girlfriend was literally always around him. I did manage to get his number before he checked out of the hotel, thankfully, and that's how I started talking to him. I refused to just let him go like that, even though I knew he had a girlfriend. I didn't let that stop me from getting what I wanted. He was very unresponsive for the first 2 months, but I gave up at the end of the day. I was just too tired. I kept trying to get his attention, even though it seemed like he wasn't interested. Well, a few months later, he messaged me and asked me out for coffee. It felt strange because he'd never paid me any attention. But I liked him, so I went along with it. I eventually found out that he'd broken up with his girlfriend, and that was why he was contacting me. I didn't mind because I knew I'd been chasing him too. We talked for a few days. A few weeks before we started dating, I couldn't believe that I finally had the rich boyfriend I'd always wanted. It was actually a very sweet feeling. I never in a million years would have thought that the sweet boyfriend I imagined would turn out to be broke. If he'd been broke earlier, I would have known not to get married to him at all. Unfortunately for me, things didn't go so smoothly. Jerry took a loan for a project at his office and promised to use the money to develop a system that would. He wanted to borrow a lot of money to benefit the company, but they weren't willing to take that kind of risk. He managed to convince them, though, and promised he'd make it worth their while. So, his company loaned him the money. That's how Jerry messed everything up. He did tell me about his plan to start up the business, but I wasn't really interested. I don't know anything about accounting or finances, so I didn't interject more. But with the amount of money he told me he was looking for, I knew it wasn't going to end well. He lied to me. He loaned far more than he told me he was going to. In fact, he loaned 10 times the amount. It's that bad. I was kept in the dark. He got scammed along the way because the people he made plans with were irresponsible. They ended up trusting the wrong people. That's how his money ended up just like that. Everything he had fought so hard to get went down the drain. He was left in massive debt. I mean, it's a lot of debt. It's not just the kind of ordinary debt, it's the kind of debt that screams, broke. He owes his company guarantor and even his bank. He wouldn't tell me about it for some reason until weeks later, when I found out on our wedding day. He got scammed, so we had been preparing for our wedding. A lot of his savings was also spent on the wedding preparation. We did a lot of outrageous stuff during that time because we thought we were going to end up rich overnight. This meant that we had spent much more than we could afford. Andrew's salary alone wasn't enough to clear the debt. He has been able to clear up half of the debt, but even that is not a lot compared to 4 years ago. That means that it will take another 4 years for him to become debt-free. It's taking this long because his company was gracious enough to allow him to have half of his salary for his personal use, provided that he paid everything by working for 8 years for them. They didn't just secure their money, they secured Andrew. As their employee, he can't just leave even if he finds a better job. Well, that's if the job can pay him the money at once so he can pay back his company. When I found out about this, I was so angry and confused that I decided to have a wild night out. I just needed a distraction, and the realization that I was getting married to someone in debt was just a heavy weight for me. I wanted to think, but thinking seemed so difficult back then. So I decided to go to a party and have a wild night out. It was at that party. That's when I discovered just how crazy things got for me. I met this guy named Nathan who was really cool and calm. He seemed like he had a lot of money, and he was also very flirty. We started flirting and then we had a one-night stand. We met up days after that and he only used protection twice. I figured he was clean since he was very hygienic, plus he eventually showed me his test reports. I wasn't completely stupid. I kept telling him I wasn't comfortable going raw with anyone, so the proof helped. I just thought I was having a nice time. I never thought that something as stupid as what happened to me would result from accepting a bad date that had been waiting for me. I love my son, but I never planned for him to come in the way that he did. It was too sudden and weird for me. I was still naive and trying to navigate my life, so having a kid with another man that was not my husband destabilized me a lot. I didn't want to just call the wedding off and not marry Jerry because I knew how much he spent. That makes me sound like a saint, but I think it's fair to say that I was trying to balance a lot of things at the time. It's still a big lie because I also didn't want to embarrass myself by canceling a wedding I had planned and announced perfectly. I knew I had a lot to lose more than I had to gain, so I just had to find a way to balance everything out. I freaked out and told Nathan about the preg. He was surprised, but at the same time he told me it wasn't totally a bad idea. He just wasn't ready for marriage and I wasn't ready to be anyone's baby mama. I wanted a stable life for myself and my child, so I made the decision to marry Jerry anyway. Nathan didn't like the idea. I told him it was either that or he married me. Of course, he just didn't want to marry me because he was still trying to get his life together. Nathan has a lot of money, so that didn't seem like a good reason to me, but I pretended like it made sense. I wanted to keep him close as the father of my child because I knew Jerry was struggling financially. I found out I was pregnant just a week after we got married. I didn't use protection because I wanted to be sure he was the father. I had to watch my back because I didn't want him to be embarrassed. I didn't want to cause any confusion, so I told him straight away that I was pregnant. It was his, of course. We were married, so there was no need for him to double-check or ask for the week. He knew we'd been together and there was no other thing going on, so I was sure he knew what was going on. I was also able to pin the marriage on him. I was pretty confident that even if he had any doubts, he wouldn't have anything to say because we'd been sleeping together even before the wedding. I was basically playing with two guys at once. I won't say I was playing with both of them, though. Nathan was the hardest to crack. He was always on his own and only contacted me when it was time for him to send me money. I knew that his main reason was because he was scared of being a father to a child that would legally belong to another man, but I always told him what he needed to do. I was actually asked to marry me, which would mean the end of my marriage to Jerry. I did everything I did just so I could save myself a lot of humiliation, but I still didn't have the peace of mind I'd hoped for. I was always on guard and scared of Jerry finding out the truth. It wasn't just that I couldn't relax and have a peaceful pregnancy without reassuring two men at once that I was doing fine and there was no need to worry. At some point, the truth almost got out, and it scared me. I was so stressed that I was on the brink of telling the truth by myself. I'd had a heated argument with someone at work and I hadn't eaten all day because I was so stressed. Jerry's mother had come to visit and she was making it difficult for me to contact Nathan and keep him updated with the things he usually asks about. This meant that I had to keep Nathan in the dark and ghost him. I wasn't replying to his texts or calling him back because Jerry's mother, she was always around, claiming to want the best for me and my baby. I felt her presence was going to do that, which stressed me a lot because I had to deal with Nathan. I promised to keep him posted as often as possible, but it became increasingly difficult to even try reaching out to him. That went on for 2 weeks, and I got worried because that meant Nathan was angry. I knew Nathan didn't like to be ghosted, but I had no choice. I decided to go with the flow, but I was worried about that. I didn't want Nathan to show up at the house and cause a scene. As I said, I was stressing and barely eating because Jerry's mother was frustrating me. That's how it ended up, leaving me so stressed. On top of that, I had an argument with someone at work. My colleagues noticed that I was dizzy at work, so they quickly called Jerry. My antenatal appointments had already told me I had high blood pressure and needed to avoid stress if I wanted to have a safe pregnancy. I didn't think it would actually be something to worry about until I ended up in the hospital and was told to quit my job in order to avoid any form of stress. It was really difficult for me because that meant I couldn't sneak out to meet Nathan. Nathan was already stressing me out a lot, and on top of that, Jerry's mother, who was looking after the house while I was in hospital, called me to ask if I knew of any Nathan who had come to look for me at the house. That's right, guys, Nathan took matters into his own hands and showed up at the house in search of me. As I'd feared, it was a difficult time for me. I was scared and had lots of thoughts racing through my mind. What hurt me the most was the realization that I was doing something wrong. I just had to find a way out. Jerry's mother was extremely harsh when she asked me questions and I had nothing to say. She's normally really inquisitive, especially when it comes to me. For some reason, she feels she has the right to be involved in my life in one way or another. I had to lie and say that Nathan was my best friend's brother, even though I didn't have a best friend at that time. This woman wouldn't give me any breathing space. That's how I realized she was suspicious. I think she's involved in what's going on right now. She's involved somehow, and nothing anyone says will stop me. Why did she have to be in my life? She said she'd tell her son if I didn't prove that he was just a friend's brother. I told Jerry the truth myself because I just couldn't deal with his mother and the way she was always on my case. After that, I had to be extra careful in managing my 2 relationships and making sure they didn't get in the way of each other. I also warned Nathan not to show up at the house like he had done before, and he agreed. As for Jerry, none of my hopes worked out because he was still bankrupt and we were living off half of his salary. It wasn't the life I'd imagined for myself, especially since I was pregnant with a child. It was tough, but I had to learn to live with it because I had no choice. Nathan still sent me money, but almost every single I craved being married to Nathan instead of Jerry. I felt like I was missing out on a lot by staying married to Jerry, but he was the only one ready to stay married to me without knowing the truth. I gave birth to my son months later, which was a big relief. Nathan started sending a lot of money after the birth. I was able to spend some money on our son, but I had to be careful about it. I didn't want to raise any suspicions in Jerry. He knew we were struggling financially, so I knew he would think I was spending too much if he saw me going over budget. I had money, but I had to spend it secretly. It also didn't help that after Cole was born, his mother decided to come back and stay with us again. I was convinced that his mother just liked to make my life difficult. I absolutely hated it any time she was around because it automatically meant that she was just going to make life difficult for me. Her presence made me that angry. I had no choice but to live with it. I ended up settling for less, just like I did when I married her bankrupt son. It became a pattern in my life. I guess that's what happens when you make the same mistake twice. The first time was saying yes to marrying him, and the second was actually going through with it. You might be wondering why Jerry isn't really involved in most of these issues. He was working extra hard to make some extra money while he was still trying to pay off his debt. He was busy, so he didn't notice a lot of things. That was until recently, though. The once nonchalant Jerry is now a very angry man who wants nothing but to make my life difficult. It's been a living hell. The truth is out now, and it's cost me a lot. The truth I struggled to keep hidden is out, and it's breaking all the hard work I put in to conceal it. I knew the truth would cost me, but I didn't expect it to make Jerry so angry. I can't believe how angry he is. He's forgotten that I stood by him through all those years. He doesn't even care about everything I did for him. I married him despite knowing that he had gone bankrupt. Not a lot of women would have done what I did, so I see no reason why he would feel like getting married to me was a mistake. If we're being honest, that's not the case. I guess I should have been more careful about what I told him about my son. But he has to understand that he made mistakes too. He put my life in jeopardy and my future was unknown when I got married to him, but I still stayed. Now Jerry has changed so much since that phone call. He has the nerve to do something so outrageous. What's worse, I'm hearing of his plans to divorce me. Why? Why? What's ever so serious? Yes, I made a mistake. One little mistake. But how does that give him a right to divorce me? Does he think he's the greatest husband? I'm the world. I can't even believe he can be this cruel. He's not all that. He has been inefficient in his matrimonial duties too. I'm not the only one that deserves all the blame. On reflection, I'm pleased I managed to keep this secret for so long. There were several occasions when the truth would have come out, such as my son's first birthday. After our son had turned 1, his features had started to show more visibly. He doesn't look much like me, he's more like Nathan's carbon copy. This detail almost cost me, as Jerry's mother started asking why my son didn't look like me. Her father, I know her well enough to know that she had no clue or doubts about the child's paternity. She just wanted to taunt me like she usually did, but she had no clue that by taunting me she was almost getting close to the truth. So I decided to play dumb and act like it was just the normal case of children taking the recessive genes of their parents. She's above middle age, so she couldn't remember that Nathan, who had been at the house, looked my son Cole, was also too young to really know what he looked like back then. I kept on juggling the relationships until my son turned 2. I didn't try for another baby because I didn't want to have a child with different fathers. I still had the hope that Nathan would marry me, so I wanted to wait until I could have all my children with him. I value marriage, which is why I've lived with Jerry for this long. I'm really worried about being an unmarried single mother. I've done almost everything I can to avoid ending up like that. I know some people can manage it well, but I don't think I'm that kind of woman. I hate the idea of being independent and working to sustain myself alone. I hate the stigma that could possibly come from it, especially when there's evidence that I've cheated on my husband just a few days. Before our wedding, I was too proud to have my name dragged through the mud like that. So after Cole's second birthday, Nathan Lai decided to become a fully fledged part of my life. He wasn't just a financial aid, we could really talk and share secrets. Apart from hugging, we didn't do anything physical. We distanced ourselves because, to be honest, I was angry that he was taking a long time to ask for my hand in marriage. I think he was just trying to avoid another baby, but that stopped all of a sudden. Our sudden closeness is what broke all the work we put into not trying to complicate things. He started asking me out on dates and we started hooking up. At first I thought it could just be platonic, but who was I kidding? Nathan is charming and rich. He hates responsibilities, and that's why I refused to marry him, even though that really hurt me. I was still very okay, so he added me as his girlfriend, and I said yes. Don't blame me for saying yes, because I had no other choice. He was the only stable financial source I had. He's also the father of my son, whether I like it or not. I didn't want there to be a distance between us. Don't get it twisted. I'm not trying to say I love Nathan. I don't love him at all. I won't say I like him romantically. I like the stability and peace he brings. I like our nights together, but I've told myself that falling in love is not for me. I'm now focused on using my head instead of my heart because doing otherwise has taught me several lessons that just break my heart. There are a lot of things that love has taught me, so I told myself that living is not for me. I just want to be rich enough to make money and do my thing well. Is that so bad? I'm going through a rough patch in both my relationships. My affair partner is still struggling to commit, and my husband is trying to end our marriage. Do you see why love is overrated? I'm going through all of this just because I thought it would be a good idea to fall in love for the first time. So let me get back to what I was telling you. Nathan and I sparked the flame in our relationship. Once again, we became an item. I think it's mostly called an affair partner for people who are already committed. So, he became my affair partner, and we hooked up a lot. I also took Cole to see him once in a while. That's mostly when Jerry's mother decides not to sleep in the house or when Jerry is too busy to sleep at home. This continued for a very long time, and I enjoyed the luxury that Nathan provided. He was also very nice to me throughout. He was really nice and caring. I loved everything he did for me, but I was too stupid to notice that he wasn't ready to commit to me. Now I know that he has zero interest in me. He's an affair partner, but he doesn't really like me as a wife. He doesn't see himself getting married to me. He just likes the fact that I go back. I'm married to my real husband, and I don't want to interfere with his relationship with Cole. I don't even have a husband to go back to. My husband is unhappy with me and wants a divorce so he can move on from the responsibilities I've brought on him. He even said that about our son, even though Cole isn't his biological son. He's still involved in Cole's life, so why can't he accept Cole as his son? What's the problem? I don't think he's done anything financially for the first time. He's just been a dad when it comes to money. He bonds with Cole and has father and son moments. He doesn't buy anything expensive, so why is he acting like this is a big deal? Cole turned 3 recently. It was just 2 weeks ago. Nathan had been out of town for business and didn't have time to wish Cole a happy 3rd birthday. If you're wondering if Cole asks, sometimes he almost slips up by calling Nathan's name in front of Jerry. He has definitely done it several times, but thankfully I bake it on the cartoon he watches. You can call me whatever, but I'm just a mother trying to protect her child and make him happy. So going forward, I'll tell you what happened. When Nathan finally decided to call 3 days ago, he told me he wanted to wish Cole a happy birthday and also wanted to talk to me about something important. He was still on his business trip when he called, and I'd been dressing Cole up, so I decided to just put the call on speaker rather than asking him to call another time. I needed free time to dress Cole up, and I also wanted to listen to Nathan, so it was better to put the call on speaker after wishing Cole happy birthday. Nathan then told me about his plans to take me and Nate on a 1-month vacation. He wanted us to come on his trip, which was a month long. He said he wanted to turn the business trip into a vacation. I told him I had to get back to the house to take care of things and that it would also be weird for me to just disappear after a month. I was giving him hints that our interactions were still Our interactions were limited because I was someone's wife. If he wanted to change that, all he needed to do was get married to me. Nathan got upset and told me that if I didn't want to go on the trip, I should just let him come and take Cole. He said he needed to be with his son. I got frustrated and reminded him that I was a married woman with a son and I couldn't just tell. I sent my husband's son away with a stranger for a month. I tried to explain to him that Jerry wouldn't be happy about me giving Cole away for a month, even though he didn't know the truth. Nathan got really angry and started shouting at me about how he didn't like the idea of me doing that. He also used some pretty abusive language about Jerry and said that Jerry was being far too protective of a dom who wasn't even his. He went on about how he'd been fired from sharing his son with someone else and how he hated Jerry's relationship with Cole. I was in the middle of that conversation when Jerry walked in, stood behind me and listened to everything quietly. He'd gone to use the bathroom downstairs because I'd been giving Cole a bath in the bathroom in our room. I didn't expect him to get it done so fast because he usually took a long time bathing, but he'd forgotten his towel and had come to pick it up. That's how he started the conversation. Jerry didn't wait for Nathan to end the call before he gave me a real grilling and broke my phone. He started throwing all my things out of my wardrobe. He tried to send me out, but I refused to go. He pushed me twice until I sprained my ankle, but I still refused to go because I knew he couldn't put his hands on a woman. He left the house angrily, but Kate came back the next day. He also threw my things out, even though it was raining. I'm stuck here without clothes and I'm hungry because he threw all the food out. If I step out of this house, I know he will lock me out. I really need help. Please help me. I told you guys Nathan is a fool. He really is. He has refused to marry me. He wants me to continue dating him, but I've refused. He said I could do whatever I wanted, but he wanted joint custody of our son after my divorce. I got divorced. Jerry wasn't playing when he said he wanted to divorce me. He knew what I feared the most was being a divorced single mother, so he made me one after destroying my properties. He also made sure word got out and I was humiliated and left penniless. He has withdrawn all paternal rights and he has left me broke. Nathan he's signed the paternity papers, but it's just because he wants to spite me for refusing to get back together with him. He no longer sends money to me. He just does whatever he wants and pays for things himself. I'm jobless with no money, so I'm broke. My biggest fears did come through, even though I tried to use deceit to hide them. Karma didn't play. Now I'm divorced and also a single mother. I'm also independent and responsible for my own finances. My life really did hit rock bottom.